with that being said, we will go ahead and dive in. It looks like we've got 40 people in the room and climbing. So good morning, everyone. I am Kendall Wright, and I am the founder of Louder Experiences out of Dallas and the marketing track captain for this year's Startup Week. And what we have done this year, this is our kickoff panel, and I could not be more excited, but what we have done this year is we have really taken tactical marketing approaches to these panels. So instead of you hearing, what great entrepreneurs created marketing businesses, we really worked with different marketing disciplines and partners to dive into how you can take away tangible action items for your business and what you should know. And so this morning, I am beyond excited to kick off the marketing panel with
Well, that's the joy of the internet.
Yeah, welcome to our virtual panel. The only person who could not freeze here is our other she's
Okay, perfect. Everyone is back. Maybe that means we're just breaking the internet. We're just so popular.
Yes.
So what we have done today is we have 4 rock star marketers that are going to share a little bit about how their brands and their companies look at marketing and what they think about. And then I am especially excited to add in Rogers Healy, who is a Dallas local who took his business. He is a combo, right? So he is a startup entrepreneur who took his business to this global dream team level and really did it on the heels of his personality marketing and his approach to being with his customers. So I'm so excited. Thank you guys all for joining us this morning from all over. And with that being said, I am going to introduce each of you and let each of you tell a little bit about yourselves and kind of your background and your focus in marketing. So this morning we have Julia Estakolchik with Match Group out of Dallas. Match Group is formerly Match.com for those who are wondering if it's one and the same. And Julia is the brand marketing manager for all of the affinity brands under Match, which includes everything from Black People Meat to Cheese Spot. They also have, for anyone who doesn't know, Match Group owns Tinder and Hinge. So they are a global superpower in online dating. And Julia, we are so happy to have you here. Rogers, I just kind of touched base on, but Rogers Healy is a Dallas entrepreneur who started his own real estate and relocation service and now has clients like Khloe Kardashian and Tony Romo. And if you watch his Instagram or his YouTube channel, goes to these multi-million-dollar mega mansions that people can only dream of and makes somehow seem like you could buy them. So he has recently been named Entrepreneur of the Year by a Texas magazine to be named. So we are excited to have him with us as well. Kara Hessels is a longtime friend of mine and a social media superstar. She has run social media marketing for brands like MTV and Maxim Magazine and currently serves as the head of social media for Amazon Music. Based out of LA. And today you'll hear some of her interesting challenges being at a global brand, but also kind of a startup product. And so learning through that. And then Kim Archibald, another longtime friend, is the head of US comms for Huawei US. If you are into tech, you know about Huawei. They are a global technology company that is currently the leader in global cell phone sales outside of the US. And Kim manages all of the US. Now all of the chats just came through, so people are very excited. We're very upset about the delay. Kim manages all of the US comms, corporate comms, and social media, so she will join in with that. So with that being said, Julia, I will let you kind of get started and say a welcome and any intro you'd like to do. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thanks everyone who I can't see, and thank you, Kendall, for inviting me to be a part of this panel. Super exciting. Like you said, I work for Match Group, and we own probably a bunch of the very well-known dating apps you all know about, those that you mentioned, and also OkCupid, Plenty of Fish, VLK. My role in particular, oh, did we lose somebody? Yes.
She does not like dating apps.
I did it on accident.
Yes, she got offended.
No, it was my fault. I have to let her know. I was trying. Her room has an echo that I noticed on the test last week, so I was trying to mute her, but I kicked her out. So I will let her know that I kicked her out. You keep going.
All right, sounds good. And yes, I started as a director of brand marketing for a subgroup within Match Group that's called Match Affinity, where we develop and market dating apps for different segments. And these different segments can be demographic segments, or it can be cultural, or they can be race, or they can be religious. So I work on a number of different apps over time and Match. Most recently, I'm really focusing on our Latino dating app that's called Chispa. It's kind of our Latino Tinder. You'll notice my accent. So I am from Argentina, cultural marketing. So this was a dream job for me. And yeah, I've been with Match for 3 years now. And that's my
Awesome.
intro.
Thank you so much for joining us, Julia. Kim, I tried to mute you because your room has a little bit of echo when someone else is talking, and then I accidentally kicked you out. So apologies. Welcome back to our room.
That's okay. That's okay.
Next up, we have Rogers Healy. Rogers, I will let you go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone. We can't hear you. You're not on mute, but I still can't hear you. And I could hear you earlier. No. I'm going to let you fiddle with it. Yeah, I'm going to let you fiddle with it, and I'll move on to someone else. Kim, since I just unmuted you and let you back in the room, I will move on to you.
Sure. So I want to be clear. I don't head all of comms in the U.S. I'm a part of the comms team. But Kendall, thank you for that promotion. I appreciate that. I hope my boss will agree with that one day. But so I oversee U.S. corporate social media. Huawei is the leading ICT and consumer devices company in the world. We have the #1 cell phone. We outpace all the competition in terms of Samsung and even Apple. We are the leaders in anything related to information communications technology, anything from 5G to AI, the way that your businesses talk to each other. And so the role that I have is multifaceted. Obviously, if any of you have probably Googled in the US Huawei technologies, you probably have heard some challenging headlines. And so one of my jobs is to increase the awareness in a positive way for a company that has a strong global reputation, and also tell stories about who we are the innovation that's caused us to be a leader, and the employees that drive our success. So I'm happy to be a part of this competition, a conversation, and actually just help share with folks any other insights they may have.
Awesome. Thank you, Kim. Rogers, are we working yet? Nope. I just texted Riley. I think it might be your permissions on your browser, even though we could hear you when you got in. There's a little, in the top bar, there's a little icon. And when you click, I lost that word. When you click on it, will give you camera and microphone settings. Do you want to leave and hop back in and see what happens? Okay, Kara, I will turn it over to you. Welcome and share a little bit about
Yeah, 1,000%. Thank you so much for the intro. Very happy to be here. As Kendall said, we're longtime friends, and that's because Kendall was actually my very first mentor. I started in the world of public relations, working for consumer brands like AT&T and iRobot. And then from there, I moved into consumer marketing for spirits and wine. So working for accounts like Gallo and Diageo. And then not long after that, I went into the world of startups, and I worked at several digital agencies. And that was where I actually got to really start to cut my teeth in social media and really start to learn what it was like to write for a brand voice. And then not long after that, I got into publishing. As Kendall mentioned, I worked at Maxim Magazine. I was there for about 4 years as their sole social media person. And since then, I have been at Amazon Music for almost 2 years now. And as Kendall mentioned, obviously we fall under the larger Amazon umbrella, but Amazon Music is still kind of new to the game so far as our competitors go, like Spotify and Pandora. So currently, we're playing a lot of catch up and kind of acting as our own startup underneath the Amazon umbrella, and trying to learn a lot and grow as fast as possible. So it's been a very interesting experience so far.
Thank you so much, Kara. Rogers, welcome back.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Sorry, and I apologize for not being able to hear the other panelists tell their stories, but I'm guaranteeing you have a more impressive story than me. I'll be short and sweet. I was a perpetual failure my entire life. Could not find a job that made sense. Lived in LA, was an actor. There's a reason I'm in Dallas realtoring now. It's because never made it big, even though ironically, my only big thing I ever did locally was I did a Match.com commercial where I had hair down to here and I danced under a bridge to come on and get the club.
Oh my God,
So,
we can see that.
it's hidden. It's hidden right along my Bachelor audition video. It's hidden. But yeah,
Roger, there's room. You need to share this with everybody watching this. You need to share your commercial.
It is on VHS tape in my safe, and I'm getting married on Saturday. And if she finds it, I have a feeling that it might change the weekend plans. So I don't want to do that. But yeah, my story, serial entrepreneur from the get-go, and I learned that because I relied on my personality, like Kendall said, from the start. I did not excel at literally anything until real estate. I auditioned for every play and every movie, and I tried out for every sports team. Literally did not make it ever. And through that, learned the value of having thick skin and being humble, which turned me into real estate because literally I tried everything. And the story goes, I took my real estate exam more than anyone in the history of the state of Texas. And I even got a job waiting tables because I couldn't afford to continue to take my test. So I have a background in the service industry as well. But I'm just kind of an everybody that figured it out. And my leverage in the world of business is my personality and making people feel safe. And I think in our world, everyone has a different superpower. And I think mine is giving people the ability to feel comfortable pretty quickly. And in sales, whether it's a multi-million-dollar property or somebody's first office space, that's a really important part of the puzzle. And so that's kind of what I preach, and that's part of my story. And I'm a business guy that happens to be in real estate, but I probably would have loved to have worked for one of y'all if you would have hired me, but you didn't. And so now I'm an entrepreneur.
Well, apparently we did.
Yes.
Hire you. So just saying.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you, Bo Stevens. I guess my name is spelled wrong. And my name has an S at the end because my mom's maiden name was Rogers, and it's just haunted me ever since. So
Yes, Bo Stevens is in your defense.
yeah. Thank you, Bo. Spelled B-E-A-U, not B-O.
Well, thank you so much, Rogers. And just a quick, I love how everything comes full circle of Kara and I working together, Rogers being in a Match commercial, Kim and I also work together. So guys, this is going to be a great panel. It looks like we have 106 people here, which as moderator capabilities, I've been able to see what have been in some of the other panels, and I'm very proud of us because I have not seen numbers this high yet. So thank you guys all for being here. I actually moved to Dallas 4 years ago from New York, and so didn't know as much about the Dallas infrastructure, and I'm definitely not in the Dallas socialite world for anyone who knows about that. And when I took on this marketing panel and started working with the DEC and Dallas Startup Week, I let Delaney know, who I'm sure a lot of you watching I know Delaney, she is the mastermind behind all of this. And I let her know that I really wanted to find some rock star Dallas stories that compete on that global level, because I do think that that is the cool thing. And I came across Rogers, who is a Dallas household name, and reached out on a whim, and Rogers said, sure, within like 3. I am very thrilled to have you here.
Make me look a little bit cooler. I just happened to be in the restroom checking my email, and I said, I'm in. All right? I'm a busy guy.
I drag Kara here kicking and screaming, who has known me for 15 years, but Rogers, I appreciated your enthusiasm. So that being said, like I mentioned, our goal today is to have you get to know a little bit about these panelists, but really to hear from them. We've talked on our practice runs about what they do, what their role is, what they look at, and really I encourage you to take notes, to ask questions, and really walk away with, oh, if they do this on their scale and at their companies, maybe I can think about it like this for me. So without any further ado, we will get started with Julia. Julia, you have mentioned, and we talked about, you oversee a lot of brands at Match Group. Can you talk to us about creating marketing campaigns for a variety of brands and how you approach it, what you consider when you start to look at marketing Chispa versus Black People Meet versus even Match as a parent company? I know that doesn't fall under you. Can you talk to us about how you approach marketing process and what your system is?
I think the first thing that I think about when we think about a marketing campaign or launching a marketing campaign would be understanding what we're trying to do. So the goals and objectives for the marketing campaign would be, first, are we launching a new product? Are we trying to change perceptions? Are we trying to grow awareness? And that's going to determine a lot of the messaging and a lot of the tactics that we do, and obviously a lot of the strategy and communication strategy. The second thing that is really a must before we even start crafting a marketing campaign is understanding who our user or potential user is. Who are these people? So if you think particularly, I come from advertising agencies where I had multiple clients at the same time, but they were all different products. So that was very easy because the role of my product in the life of a consumer was very different if I was talking about cars or if I was talking about chocolate. In this case, we have all dating apps, all the insights. And so it's kind of like, okay, how do you market products that we are developed for different communities? And I think the first thing after the goals is trying to understand who these people are and what is the role that our product or our brand has in their lives. So for dating apps, if you think, for example, of someone dating in their 60s, it is very different than someone dating in their 20s. So in their 20s, they might be very casual. They might be celebrating the single life and using Tinder. And in their 60s, they might be looking for companionship and shared experiences. So the role, the function that our brand has, how we add value to their lives is very different. The other really important thing that we consider is what is the life stage of our category or our brand in the life of this consumer. Are they already familiar with the category? Is this a really well-established category? So familiarity with the category is already established. So then I just have to build that relationship between my brand and the user or the potential consumer or target. You know, we've had cases in which we launch new brands like Chispa or BLK, and then I work on brands that were really well established, like Our Time or Black People Need, and they were very, very different situations. So I think that once you determine who you're talking to, you also need to understand where they are in their dating journey. And this can be, if you're talking about cars, it can be where they are in the car purchasing process. Are they exploring and doing preliminary research about that? Are they ready to make a decision? In the case of dating, it's more like, am I ready to start that, or am I thinking it might be a good idea to start dating? So we really pay really close attention to these very unique segments, and also what are the barriers, the tensions in the category. So if you think, for example, of a dating app for people over 60, a big part of the barrier is how long has it been since they dated last? Maybe they just divorced after a long time. Maybe they never married. So the tensions that they have with dating are very different than, for example, a Latino in their 20s, where what's important for them is meeting someone who can get along with their family, who understands their language. So you really have to understand what different needs this group has as it relates to your product and your category. Everything else, I would say, those really lay that information really lays the foundation to think strategy, because everything else is more tactical. It's okay, what is their journey? What are the potential touch points, right? What type of media are they consuming, when they're consuming it? What type of messaging is relevant? All those things we can align after we know what we're trying to do and who we're talking to. I think that's the one thing that we can't live without. I mean, I can go on more tactical if we want. I don't know if we want to go tactical, but I think it's more like it's really taking a step back and understanding what you're trying to do.
No,
and
I
with
think
who.
that's great. And it's, I had a meeting with a client yesterday who is opening a new property, and they hadn't answered that question yet. So all of the ideas that we were presenting were very tactical, because when you don't have that question answered, you can't really start forward. And I do think that that is something that entrepreneurs struggle with, is they're behind the engineering and the product. And Kim, you talked about this a little bit on the side of like not thinking about marketing until afterwards, right? Like you have this great product and going out with it.
And I think it's the challenge also today is you've got to look at what you're selling, be it a product or a service, as well as who you are and why you're selling it. What's the value that you as the entrepreneur or as a part of this startup young company team can bring to society? And we're in that phase now where the winds are changing in a sense, and that where a role like the roles that I've had in the past are more corporate marketing, corporate communications, might be a smaller part of overall team, but now people need to know who you are. And that's probably one of the reasons why Rogers has been so incredibly successful, is not only is he offering a very good solution, but he himself is a part of the brand that he is positioning. And I think that's something that that entrepreneurs can definitely consider as they're forming what their marketing vision could be, that it's that two-part, who you are, who you want to be, and what you want to bring in terms of your products and solutions to the marketplace and positioning that.
Yeah. And it's great that you mentioned Rogers, because when you were saying that, I thought this is a perfect transition to Rogers. Rogers, I know in some of the things I've read about you, Dallas is a traditional market. Dallas is not, there's a lot of established traditions, and I read that, you know, when you started, you got some pushback from the establishment of real estate. Can you talk a little bit about that and about how you shaped that brand different?
Sure, and thank y'all for what you said, but I want to humble myself and give you guys a little bit more excitement about your successes. I'm not trying to be funny here. Real estate is literally the job that people do when you can't find another job. And I tell you that literally, and I'm obviously a walking billboard for that. But when I got into it, I tell you I have a background in entrepreneurship, but that doesn't mean I have a background in success. And I also didn't have a background in hard work. And so I got into real estate in 2001. I was 21 years old, and I was same personality, but just a little less educated and zero wisdom. And the commonality between everybody that told me like what I needed to do, it all revolved around just wait it out, put your time. I'm like, I had time, but I didn't have patience. And so I just started listening differently, and I started paying attention differently. And I realized that really the common thread between everybody that was successful in real estate was that they had done it for a long time. And so that was almost 20 years ago, where there was probably 15,000 realtors in Dallas, and now we're approaching closer to 70,000. And so for me, it wasn't really, I got pushback when social media came out. And I know, Kara, you might appreciate this, but my big splash into the scene was I was the first realtor in the country to do social media. And people give me accolades for that. But I mean, the subtext, I couldn't afford to do traditional marketing. I couldn't afford to do a magazine. I couldn't afford to do a mailer. And social media, especially back then, was 100% personality leveraged. And that's when my pushback came. And that's when people on all sides were calling me names and talking about me. And I would get super upset about it. And I'm like, oh my God, they're talking about me. And so I learned to go and turn that into something that led into a successful career. But it's hard. Right. And the good news for the other people that are speaking today is y'all know you have to have qualifications to get to where you're at. Period. You have to have experience. You have to have education. In my industry, and I'm not talking negatively about it because obviously it's my livelihood, but you have to be 18, a U.S. citizen. You have to pass a test, which I took it a lot. And then it's just kind of like, good luck. Right. So what I try to do with real estate was put the business into, especially the residential side. And by doing that, I found that I can leave them with a memory, but if I can back it up with some education and some expertise, that's when I'm. But to kind of go to Kim's comment, when I started my company, it was all about me, right? My entire life was all about me. And I thought ironically, I've got my name 86 times behind my head. But anyway, it was all about me, and that came with pushback. And the people that I thought I was helping build, right? You work for Amazon. It's not JeffBezos.com. It's Amazon and Match.com and the other companies. And for me, that came with pushback to where the last 5 years of my journey have been about rebranding everything about my companies to where it's not my face on everything. It's my name. And that was difficult. And that came with a lot of lessons learned, but that was the pushback that I never thought I would experience was from employees. And that's just, it's a constant battle for me on that side of things.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for being so open and sharing.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Leading into that, speaking about Kara and Amazon, Kara, you also manage a variety of different brands and music types that have to come out, but within one platform, right? So you have an indie music that launches on a Tuesday, and then Beyonce drops a surprise album at midnight on a Wednesday, and then you have to do a country album, on a Friday. Can you talk to us about how you shape that with some of the things that everyone has talked about? and how you guys approach it from your standpoint.
Sure. So we definitely segment our approaches platform to platform. Going back to Julia, Kim, what you had mentioned earlier about understanding who you're talking to. After a lot of testing and learning, it became very clear to us that the Facebook platform audience, that audience is very different from the Twitter audience, which is different from the Instagram audience. So, so far as rolling out social media plans for specific artists, we definitely take demographics into consideration, age into consideration. Foremost, at the end of the day, we all have, no matter what platform we are publishing to, we have to maintain the same brand voice. Otherwise, we run the risk of alienating followers who possibly follow us on several different accounts. So I think that's the one thing that we've really tried to strategize and focus most on is how does everything ladder back to the Amazon Music voice? You know, our voice is we want to be your best friend in music. So how do we basically create this like guiding light? So we have a bunch of social media tenets that all ladder back to Amazon principles, but ultimately, you know, whether we're on like the Twitter handle or we also we're launching handles for Latin music, we also have handles for hip hop music. Even though we're talking to different audiences, the same general voice has to apply across the board. So I think that that's something that when you are starting your own company or whether you're marketing for a national brand, you need to understand that the voice that you're creating is the one thing that there should be synergy across the board. It's something that your fans should know off the cuff, like who you are too, back to your point as well, Kim. And I think that, you know, you can't really, that voice can't be segmented. I think your approach platform to platform and social media can be segmented, but your voice has to stay the same throughout.
Yeah. Well, and you talked a little bit last week, you and I talked a little bit about how Amazon's guiding principle is the customer. So can you talk a little bit about what you shared with me about how you approached it previously before joining Amazon? Because I think that ties in to exactly what everyone else was saying.
Sure. So for example, when I was working in publishing, so much of what we were doing was let's just do the cool thing and let's do the cool thing first. Whether that cool thing is trending or not, let's just be the first to do this new cool thing. And so that I think was the mindset that I brought to Amazon Music, just trying to do a lot of cool stuff. But something that I had to be reminded of over and over again is just because you think it's cool doesn't necessarily mean our customer thinks it's cool. And even if that something is trending right now, that doesn't necessarily mean that your customer is going to care about that. So constantly having in the back of your mind, the customer's perspective. So yes, maintaining this overarching brand voice, but also thinking about it constantly from, is this follower on Facebook going to care about this new music drop, or are they more interested in catalog content because we know that Facebook tends to skew older? And, you know, vice versa on Instagram and Twitter, are these people going to care about, you know, this is funny, this happened last week, a Nickelback release. No, on Instagram and Twitter, they don't care about Nickelback.
Ooh, Devil Down to Georgia.
They just dropped new music last week to a lot of people's surprise, delight, what have you, but it did not, our Twitter and Instagram audience did not care. Our Facebook audience, however, the post that we published announcing their new music, it was the top performing post of the week. So that's the thing. Through testing and learning, you understand what your customer cares about, and that is who you ultimately have to tailor your content for.
And I think that
knew Nickelback was still making
2020, baby, the year of surprises.
sorry, what I was gonna say was
And technically, it was a cover of Charlie Daniels. Yeah.
who the customer is or who the people we're talking to is should not only drive the marketing but also the product that you market and any features that you add, any offerings to your product. So it's way beyond marketing. Understanding who the customer is should also drive product strategy and whatever you do with it. So super key what you just said.
Yeah, and everything everybody else also saying is test and test and test. It's going to be so many different approaches, whether it's platform specific, message specific, but you're going to have to keep on testing and seeing what performs best, and then make decisions and kind of adjust along the way. And fortunately, we're in a time now where so many companies, large and small, can have those tools to develop what their voice is, what their strategy is, and what channels make sense for them. Because I mean, you guys are fortunate in that most of these channels that we're talking about are relevant to you, but there might be some that, really just, I mean, we have a Facebook account and it is not a place for us to be right now. So, after much testing and really understanding and realizing this market and what makes sense for our brand here, you can be an established company and still have those traditional mindsets. You've got to show with the data that, no, this is not the right path for us to invest heavily in.
And it's interesting because our next question is about Rogers targeting the high net worth individual and looking at that specific, how do you break in? But in the chat over here, Peter has asked, a lot of entrepreneurs have trouble understanding the market and the ecosystem that they're operating in, and then as a consequence, struggle to develop appropriate competitive go-to-market strategies. And that's really what everyone is saying is, and that's really what our goal over the next 2 days with the marketing track is to give you real life examples of what people in these roles are asking. Right after this, we have a hour from agency leaders on what agencies are charging for. You can go to an advertising agency or a PR agency or an event agency. We're going to give you some secrets into that of like, here's what we're looking at. Here are the tools we have. We have a full dive into social media. We have a full dive into video and content creation. So I encourage you, everyone, to keep tuning in to the marketing track to get some of those pointers on developing them. And with that being said, I would say, Rogers, you targeted, how did you come up with, okay, here's this gap in this wealthy millionaires that need to relocate their homes and need these mega mansions with man acres or whatever, and how did you approach them and attract that clientele?
You watched my show, didn't you?
I did.
You said man acres. Yeah, thank you. So like I said, my business, literally the oldest sales job in the history of the world, biblically, is a real estate agent. First person ever sell anything, sold a piece of land. And that'll tell you how old our industry is. And when I got into business, the average realtor was like 62 years old. And I'm sure it's probably closer to 50 now because there's so many people trying to do this. But for me, I looked at it with a different lens and I looked at it from different perspectives. And luckily, my journey, I didn't wake up as a kid and say I wanted to be in real estate. I just woke up and said, what's for breakfast? And I'm going to do the bare minimum and I'm going to eat and play video games. And then I don't ever want to grow older. And now I'm getting married. But with real estate, I saw it as an opportunity to leverage what I had observed with the world and create conveniences. And most people in our industry are niche salespeople, and they do a thing called farming. Farming essentially means you pick your neighborhood, you plant the seeds, you water the plant, you hope that it grows, you hope that you can eat. And I was like, well, that's dumb. I've lived in LA, I've lived in New Orleans, I've lived in New York, I've traveled all over to where my farm, my network was the world. And so when I would go and leverage social media and post something like, hey, blah, 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 my friends in Chicago or New York or wherever would say, hey, do you know a realtor here? And at the same time, my path as an agent, what was going to keep me connected and keep me excited about what I was doing, I wanted to work with the big name people here, the big names for me, athletes, CEOs, whatever. And so after figuring out how to kind of do that, I started landing these local deals. And I was living with a very famous athlete at the time who I just kind of learned the behind the scenes of pro sports at the same time. Long story short, I started a relocation company about 11 years ago. And the focus still is high net worth individuals, any move, anywhere in the world, any kind of real estate, we do it. And through that, the first 7 or 8 years of my obsession was literally trying to become friends with these clients, right? And you mentioned the Kardashians, and we've represented The Rock, right? But if I went to Starbucks and he would probably tell me to beat it, he didn't realize that I helped him with his real estate stuff. I tell you that to where I learned that the golden goose is more valuable than the golden egg. And so my focus shifted to the people that are the decision makers. And if you guys have seen the TV show Entourage, my bullseye in Entourage is Turtle or Ari. I want the person that's handling, the life or managing 15 of their lives. And so when I started doing that, my personal production with the real estate stuff, like all over, just took off differently. And I had to learn how to scale, which is a whole nother, failure to success story. But I did that. And I think that people appreciated the fact, and still do, that even locally, you can probably close your eyes and just like, there's an image of a realtor that comes to your head, right? And it probably doesn't look like me. And you can close your eyes and even imagine like a great experience with a real estate agent. It probably ended there. And with me, I had to go and find a way to connect with these men and women and have nothing to do with real estate, And so I leveraged not just my personality, but my interest, which means like they kind of were just thinking of me anyway. And so by doing that, it's called Healy Relocation. That's the TV show that I hosted. I traveled the country touring. It's kind of like MTV Cribs for 2020. And it's just fun. And I think people appreciate that. So I took an old traditional sales job, put a twist on it to where I can still enjoy it. And these conveniences along the way were just based off of people asking me. And I'm like, well, I keep referring it out. Why can't I make money from doing it?
Yeah.
Here we are.
Well, and I think Kara, Rogers, you hit on a nugget that I want to expand on. Kara, you also have to the better relationships you have with the music managers and their relationships, the quicker access you get to their music, the quicker they'll do like a quickie, partnership with you as opposed to, full. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I do think there is a lot of correlation, and that's a really interesting thing to everyone listening, that it's not always, you don't have to be best friends with Tony Romo to like get access to what Rogers is talking about. You don't have to know Rihanna to be able, one of my clients was working on an event a few weeks ago. I have a lot of relationships with sports agents through my sports marketing background. And all of a sudden the conversation, instead of me just being like, hey, could you give me a friend to come help promote this for a small budget? He was like, oh, well, Dak's available these days, et cetera, because I have built his trust and he knows that, he can work with me on that. And then that elevates what I'm marketing on. It fell through, so no one hold up for this event with Dak. But Kara, can you talk a little bit about that?
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. One of, I think the most important Amazon principles is earn trust. And we have to earn trust within your team. You have to earn trust with the people that you work with externally. And I think so much for us in the Amazon Music space, since we are still playing catch up to the likes of Spotify, Pandora, et cetera, is, how can we do our best to earn trust in a unique way with not only artists, but also artist teams. We have artist and label relations teams, for example, that, that is one of their like core KPIs is earning trust within the music industry. And I think from a social perspective, a lot of that is making sure that we are not only promoting a specific kind of artist on a specific platform. We have to show love to emerging artists as well as the chart toppers across the board. And that, not only will that, I would say, earn trust like with the artists and the management teams themselves, but throughout the industry as well. It just goes to show that like we're here to support all musicians and want to be able to amplify as many voices as possible with the platform that we have being Amazon Music.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And someone commented, trust and relationships equals everything for small businesses, and I think it's true. And as you Kim, you're actually up next, but this actually really ties in to what you have had to deal with coming into your role, right? You were at places that had their customer trust before. For those who don't know, Kim has worked at BET in communication. She worked at Benjamin Moore. All of those are established brands that have the consumer trust and have a really loyal audience. You've now been at Huawei for about a year, a little over a year.
Mhm.
And you have had some challenges and going to market. Talk to us about how you guys go to market here, and how you earn that trust and what you work on.
Sure. So we've been in the U.S. actually for 10 years. We have customers that are in smaller rural communities that the big folks like T-Mobile and Verizon don't necessarily service. So we're helping to connect those smaller rural towns to the internet. But for us, I mean, similar to what Kara said, we are all about the customers. And so innovation is a super big deal to us. And we spend so much on R&D that it allows us to be first to market in a lot of areas where our competitors don't. But as it relates to social and comms and marketing, I really can't stress enough listening and testing out different platforms for performance for what kind of messages resonate. Because when you are building up a brand or you're building up a reputation, you first have to figure out by listening, and there's lots of resources that, even Facebook, Google, Twitter, they have their own analytics. It might not be as nicely packaged as you might get through an agency partner or a bigger monitoring tool. But there's a lot of resources that are free or very close to free where you can figure out what things are performing well and figure out what your strategy and where your opportunity to have a voice is. And then, as Kara said, also, yes, defining that brand voice for yourself and really going to market there. I mean, at BET and Benjamin Moore, those were, even though they were very different companies, having that established brand is something that just takes time, right? There's no other shortcut way to do it. Everybody on this panel, whether you've been at the company for 1 year or you started the company 20 years ago, that company has gotten to where it is by really just hunkering down and staying focused on getting more customers and getting that awareness out for the stories and things that matter to customers, to their brand. And I've worked for a number of legacy brands, and including the one that I work for right now. And that's been like a tried and true thing. It's just, you got to hunker down and stay focused on your strategy. And over time, you will see results. It might not be within 6 months. It could take 18 months to 2 or 3 years, but it's something that you just have to keep at it.
Awesome. And on that, while you're on that, and this can be to everyone, Andrew asked, what are some resources for testing market and reach to reach a lot of people on a small budget? Are there any resources you recommend? So I'll open that up. Kim, you just mentioned a lot of testing you guys do, but I'll open that up, to anyone if you have specific tangible tips. Otherwise, we can drop them in the chat as people think about them.
We do a lot of testing on online. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Julia.
We do a lot of testing on online performance marketing. I think paid social ads, outside of just digital advertising, but paid social is a great way to gauge not just interest, but because people can actually comment, you can actually gauge sentiment towards your brand and towards your offering. You have great opportunities to optimize, to test different creatives. So the one thing we test, again, we do a lot of tests on the brand marketing end. So that's like building the brand. But in terms of performance and reaching a lot of audiences, different subsegments, refine your targeting criteria and say, okay, well, maybe I'm not appealing to this persona that I thought I would be appealing to, but let me do this other test. So I definitely think paid social, it's a great tool to do that and to learn.
Kim?
I could not agree more. I think paid social is probably one of the most critical things right now. But the other thing is there's lots of tools. I mean, someone mentioned Hootsuite. Before I joined Huawei, I actually worked for a small MarTech startup. And there's a number of smaller MarTech companies that can help you. If you literally Google MarTech companies, you'll be able to probably find something, especially in the Dallas area. I don't have a recommendation, but there are a number of companies that can help you track your performance, track your search strategies, your organic and paid strategies, and can see what things are doing well for you and what you should be doing more or less of, that can help inform your strategy and figure out where there's more customers and gaining leads and all that interesting stuff.
Yeah. Kara, I know you worked for a little while for a startup and kind of worked in that world. And what have you seen kind of across the smaller brands and the big brands that really works for testing things?
Well, so for us in social media, a lot of it is native insights. A lot of it is us drilling down into the actual platforms themselves and seeing what the demographics are, the times in which people are watching. I think something that's also really important is to understand where your people are consuming content as well. So when I say that, I mean not just the platform, but are they viewing on desktop or are they viewing on mobile? And then you're better able to tailor your content that way. So for example, a recent study showed that I think it's something along the lines of like 92% of people are consuming content on social media with sound off. So with that in mind, we started tailoring all of our content, all of our video content specifically, to ensure that they had subtitles so that people could enjoy the content no matter where they were. And I know that that might sound like a very small lift, but it actually was incredibly impactful. So I think in addition to, drilling down into those native insights, a platform that I live and breathe in is called Sprinklr. It's a publishing platform that also has its own listening tool. So that is even a more complex listening tool than you'll be able to find on native insights. But to Julia's point, you can find sentiment and you can really deep dive into exactly who is viewing your content, where, ideal times, etc. So yeah, again, but it all comes back to testing and learning.
Awesome. And Rogers, what about y'all? Do y'all do testing? How do you guys segment things like that?
So ours is just to a different scale, and for us, I mean, there's two. My company has 4 different clients, 4 different audiences, and 4 different groups of people we're trying to hit, and it's pretty simple. The first is people that already work for the company. The second is people we're trying to get to come work for the company. Third is people that are already clients, like one of the nice ladies that commented earlier, and the fourth are future clients. And so our testing system is a little bit different, right? And unfortunately, part of what we do, a lot of our marketing is stuff that we kind of just have to market, right? It's like on a personal Instagram page when you post something, you're like, why aren't there any likes, right? We have those, we just have to do because it's part of our job. But something that we focused on recently, really the last couple of years, is every year we have a different word that we try to, focus on. This year it was dimension. And, I think a lot of what traditional salespeople do, it could be just a photo, right? And it can even just be a video, which was a big step for realtors to do a home tour. But the dimension for us is being able to go and merge the personality with the traditional. And what we see with that is we do get pushback from people. But every once in a while for us, y'all are lucky to know that your metrics are measured instantly. For us, relatively instantly. For us, it could be months down the road where someone's like, hey, I saw your really weird commercial and I remembered your name. We're thinking about selling. I'm like, no way, of course, right? So it's harder for us to go and track that, but it's just our name of our game is we want to be everywhere all the time where people can't forget about us. And having, kind of my soldiers that work for the company do it, it's hard. So the short answer is we don't have a way to really turn down something. We just have to try it all. And then if there's 10 things at the end of the year that we tried and 5 worked, we'll take those 5 and take them to a 10 and just kill the other ones that didn't do anything.
Yeah, and I think, and you said it kind of from the beginning about the failure to success. I think allowing yourself those failures, or to say oh, hey, we did this, it didn't work. Let's pivot, or this really
Yeah.
worked and let's expand upon it and make it even better is a thing I would encourage anybody building a business and looking at your marketing to pay attention to. Because when you find those things and you kind of dig in, then that's when you really see the explosive growth.
Yeah, and one thing I'll say from an entrepreneur perspective is I think the only thing more valuable than knowing what you're great at is knowing what you suck at. And I learned pretty early on, and I the word suck is maybe inappropriate, but like I suck at systems and I suck at details. And finding people, and I tell you this to where I don't want my message to be like, well, don't worry about details, don't worry about systems. You got to find somebody that's great at that. And that to me was something that took me way longer than I would like to admit. But doing that, what I was going to say is, like, let's say on the scale of life and success, there's 10 things that you can be great at in your business, right? And 3 of them you're a 7 out of 10, 2 of them you're a 5 out of 10, and 5 of them you're a 1 out of 10. Those 5 that are 1 out of 10, it's not worth your time to get to a 2. It's not worth your time to get to a 3. You want to get the 5s to a 7 and the 7s to a 10. And in order to do that, it just takes time to go and, you know, kind of practice it. But in the meantime, there's people that can still be the yin to your yang. And that just took me a long time because I was a control freak. And it's weird. It's a weird animal. And when you're the first to market with something, you live really, really, you know, in fear. And that's not a really fun place to be.
Yeah, well, and that actually leads me to my next question, which was for you about, now that you sit in this role as a CEO, well, you've always been in it, but now that you have thousands of people who work for you, what do you require from your marketing teams? Like, is it that, hey, my goal is for us to be everywhere all the time? Is it, I want it to be non-traditional? You know, what do you ask them to look at?
So a lot of things. And I think that, like, the number one rule of marketing, right? And we all learn this growing up, is consistency. Okay. And that's crucial. But I think what's more important is the consistency of the message. And for us, I'm a very simple marketer, to where unintentionally I'm drinking a Dasani water, right? To where if you're watching a movie and the guy goes to drink the water, he's not going to drink it like, he's going to drink it like this, to where you're like, oh my gosh, it's like, that's real estate. And so we market to the people that we would want to be on the other side of the marketing from. And our team is very, very simple. And the stuff that we've done that's gotten the biggest responses has been the most traditional marketing platforms ever. It's just been memorable, right? And so, like, I can give you 1,000 examples, but the short of it is, my goal in life is to meet people every single day that ask me what I do for a living, right? And like, for a while they'd ask me, like, what? Are you kidding me? Right. But now, like, I seek that out. Then that just proves that there's a new audience. And the message came out this morning that millennials are literally the biggest players in the housing market right now for the first time ever, which means there's a group of people listening to Rihanna and Beyonce, probably not Nickelback, that don't know about my company. And so we have to go and pivot, you know, with personality. And on top of that, like I said, too, how do you stand out from there's 2.2 million people that do what I do in the country. How is my name at the top of that list? Right? It comes with a little bit of risk, right? But through that as well, there's an opportunity to be vulnerable and be like, all right, hey, my idea actually sucked, but I still know real estate and we're already talking. So why interview someone else? You know, and I think that leading like that works, and it does help change the industry just a little bit, because it is still, you know, it's still full of traditionalists.
Ruben says poor Nickelback, and Nickelback just did not ask to be involved in this conference, but, you know, here they are.
The joke is on us. The joke is Nickelback. Literally, those guys are rich.
Said their name, what, 15 times now in the span of 30 minutes? So, I mean,
everyone's going to go listen to their.
My goal is to be the Nickelback of real estate. I want to be the Chad Kroger of real estate. Period.
I believe in you.
Done. Bye. That's it. Thank you.
Carol, please report back in a week about your listening data today to Nickelback's new album.
You got it. We'll do a follow-up.
Yeah, we'll ask for some royalties from them. Okay, so now we are going to spend the next 15 minutes kind of giving you guys a preview of what is to come on the Dialed In marketing panels, but using some of the insights from these panelists. And then we have hopefully about 15 minutes for from you guys that we will start letting you in. So the first one is for Kim. Our next panel after this is tips and tricks from agencies. So we've spoken a little bit about agencies. Several of us have backgrounds in agencies. And so it is different as we approach business because we come with that training from marketing agencies. Right. I saw a lot of differences when I opened up my business. Some of the things that were important to me, getting a good website up, getting good branding, paying for a brand deck, having messaging, to Roger's point about consistency. I wanted everyone to know that I was the loudest and I was going to make the biggest splash when they hire me for their events and experiences. And so I made sure that that through line went through all of my materials, right? However, in the entrepreneur world, if they don't come from that background, they don't know that there needs to be a through line, or they don't, they see a good logo and then they see a good font and they, pick a picture. And so our next panel right after this is 5 different agencies: PR, advertising, brand design, and I'm speaking again experiential, although I'm not really a speaker on this one, but we'll really dive into what we know and what tools we use from the agency side and what things you need to think about for that through line. So Kim, you have worked on the brand and the agency side. What would you share with someone who has none of that background and has never worked in the marketing team at a brand or an agency?
Sure. As Roger put it earlier, the importance of systems and creativity. I think that nowadays, it's not, you can't just have a creative agency. That's not going to get you long-term sustained results. Systems is incredibly important for any agency partner that any company has, whether you're young or an established legacy company. You need to have a partner that has systems in place, because we are living in a very socially driven digital world. And the systems part is what's going to help keep your messaging, your stories, your brand continuously relevant and optimizing for today and tomorrow's customers. And it's going to help you target and refine those targets to make sure that you are doing what you envision and said that you would do. And I think that's, to me, the biggest difference. I mean, when I was working at agencies, and I hate to say it, but like 15 years ago, that wasn't as, I know, right? That wasn't as important, the systems part. Systems really was about like reporting metrics. But now, like, you could have the most creative idea, but if your system is not there to execute it in the right way, the right timing and the right platforms, then it's going to fall flat. And so, and you don't have to be a big brand for that. It's really got to be that that balance of both. But I would actually recommend more of a systems importance of a 60% systems and 40% creativity, because it should also be listening to what you as the client are asking for and kind of going off of that for their creativity.
Awesome. Kara and Julia, I know you both worked at agencies as well. Any insight you want to add to that?
Yes, definitely creativity isn't enough. I learned being on this side is how the KPIs that we look at on the corporate side are very, very different than those that traditionally creative agencies have been looking at, which are softer, more, I would say, like upper funnel, what's the opinion, the consideration, and all those things. And I think that as a client, you're also looking at health, metrics in a different way, and you're looking at performance and really what they are, the transactional results. So I think definitely systems, definitely the measurability has been different. And I really think that really a deep dive into the client's business or the corporate business or the business around the product and not the business around the communication and the advertising. That's been a huge shift in mindset coming from an agency. The business is the product, not the communication. The communication is a tool to promote your business. It might be a very, very important tool, diminishing or reducing by any means how important it is, but I think that we still need to be both user-centric or people-centric, and product as a business, product as a metric, product as a measure for success.
Awesome. Kara?
I
You
was
can say no. Anyone can tell me no.
No, I was going to echo Julia's point from earlier. I think that at the end of the day, goals. You have to have very clear, defined goals, whether it's for a specific campaign or for growing your company. Is it brand affinity? Is it brand awareness? Is it social follower growth? You have to be really clear with yourself, internally as well with your teams about what the actual goals are, and then make sure that everything that you're doing is laddering back to those goals, because you would be surprised as to how easy it is to get off track when you have like this big picture in mind. But so to try and keep the goals as specific as possible.
I just also want to add, because Julia made a really good point about the business, and sometimes entrepreneurs can be wary about inviting an agency partner inside to that business and really to have those tough conversations. When I worked for a startup that was on the marketing technology side, that was a challenge that we had, was having the conversations go beyond the marketing team and really into the business, because especially if you are a younger company, you're a startup, first of all, you might not even have an in-house marketing person or comms person. So having that real talk with an agency partner is going to be critical for them to be effective.
Yeah, that's a great point. And a lot of times, knowing from being on the in-house side, that's where the bottleneck lies, right? Like you can get tons of buy-in with your marketing team, but if you don't have tie-in with the business or the sales operation, it can fall flat. Rogers, do you guys use outside agencies?
No, I interviewed to work at some, and they when I was in college, but no, my degree was advertising, and I have a lot of times said that we run an advertising company and our client is our real estate company. So I'd love to get to the points where we could, have some help on that, but ours is real social media heavy. Probably 80% of our revenue comes from social media. And that's even though we can go and do other stuff, and we sprinkle some traditional stuff in too. But what I learned with that is I did something a few years ago that was traditional, but I went all in for like 2 months and then completely pulled back because I couldn't afford to do it. And that 2 months bought me like 2 years of conversations. And we've kind of done that with TV spots, with billboards, with mailers. But social media has been our mainstay for the most part. And majority of the leads that we capture, we don't pay for them, right? Like we're doing social media targeting ads, but we've got an army of people, and when 250 people post a listing, that goes to 1 million people through their audience. That's how we found a lot of our success as far as advertising.
Yeah. And one of the things, Julia, I'm going to skip over the future question. We'll come back to it. But since, Rogers, you're talking about that, you guys, we have a whole session tomorrow on video marketing. And you guys use a ton of video. You specifically are great about hopping on and being like, let me show you what this is, and using video. Tell us why it's been important to you and why you use that video in your marketing purposes.
Sure, I'll try to be succinct. So like I was saying with dimension, right? Dimension is crucial, where with what we do with real estate, a picture of the front of the house, a front of the building, or an aerial of a farm or ranch or a lake house, that's great, right? Especially right now, we want to be able to give people an experience. But on top of that, one of my objectives, and I learned this at the very beginning with social media, it's like fishing, right? And back when Facebook statuses came out, I was a kid in a candy store because I could just go promote a lead generating website that I would start Big D Renting, live by SMU, and I would get all these leads. And then I realized that the leads were from like the people that were 2 or 3 degrees away from like my circle. And so I started losing them. And so I realized with video, it gives us the opportunity to go and have people. We want people watching the video that had no intention of buying, selling, or leasing any time in the near future. They either want to see me to where they can make fun of me, literally, or they can just go and, like they call it, house porn, right? And next thing you know, they're like, I remember that person or that song or that property. And if it ties back to us, it's a win. So for us, it's really a combination of promoting ourselves, our personal brands, our company brand, and the product. But if we have a shelf life, even when the property sells, it's a win long term. So yeah, it's just bringing personality. And like I said too, the theme of this is we're the anti-realtors, right? And like everyone knows a realtor. Close your eyes. We went through that drill, and then there's us. And so people see that. And for me too, organically, it attracts people to the industry that probably never would have thought about doing real estate in the first place. And that's obviously my biggest personal audience, is growing the company with people that have staying power. So yeah, adding dimension, adding personality, and just being memorable like anybody else. But in our industry, you know, it's a little bit easier, but then backing it up with the knowledge base is the difficult part.
Yeah. And Kara, you talked about your insight about people listening with sound off and adding the subtitles. You guys do a lot of video, obviously, because music artists. How do you decide what to film with your iPhone on, you know, backstage saying, hey, Wiz Khalifa, tell me about your evening, versus a full-on video content shoot?
So the thing about social media is you have to be incredibly nimble, right? And oftentimes that means sacrificing quality of the content, AKA going off of your phone or trying to do a massive production. I think if it's, you know, a lot of social media is also just being like scrappy and trying to get things like super quick and dirty. I remember when I was at Maxim and we didn't have, we lost our production team, and I was still tasked with trying to generate you know, original content for our feeds with no budget and with no production company. So it was literally me and my iPhone interviewing artists backstage at Coachella, like whatever it took to get the content that we needed. So I think that there's obviously a place and time for being really scrappy, getting quick and dirty content. But I think that a lot of that also depends for us on the artists that we're working with, you know, like, as we were talking about the customer's perspective and understanding what the customer wants, it's also understanding your subject matter as well. And so if that's an artist that's not really their vibe, you know, you need to understand that and maybe take more time into actually specifically for them, because then you'll be able to translate that to specific audiences, platform to platform. So yeah, for us, we try to take it case by case. Another learning for us was right when quarantine kicked in, and every artist was struggling to figure out how to still connect with their audiences. You know, everyone was taking live streams. So social media was, again, at the forefront of you know, a lot of marketing campaigns and just generally like, hey, I need to figure out how to connect with my audience. Can you help us do that? So we were having artists go live from our Instagram handle often. But one thing that we realized was, you know, not all of their fans live on our channels. So how can we bring their fans to our feeds? So one thing that we realized was if we had an Instagram host who could log in live from our channel, and then the artist could dial in from their handles, that brings all of their followers over to our feeds, which is beneficial for them because now their actual fans are there. And in addition to that, we now have new eyes on our content and on our feeds, which incentivizes people to follow us. So again, there's a lot of things that you'll just pick up along the way, but I think you still have to try to consider who it is that you are featuring and then what their audience is interested in as well.
That's awesome. That's I appreciate the tangible example. And as a backstory, I was texting Carol one night 2 years ago, and she was not responding. And usually she's super quick. And then like a couple hours later, I see her personal post be like, oh, was it Ryan Seacrest that took your phone? You were having to live stream from who was it?
Macklemore.
Oh, Macklemore. And so on her personal feed, she's like, when you have to end up giving your phone to Macklemore for the evening.
That's
It was
awesome.
a red carpet event, and yeah. Oh, Macklemore and Joel McHale, they both just took my phone, and they were like, for them, it was easier to talk to like the Amazon Music audience on Instagram, like while holding the phone first person rather than me filming them. So I said, okay, here you go.
Joel McHale was who I was thinking of, but Macklemore's, a little more name dropping. Okay, last question, and then we've got a couple of people in the moderation panel that we will jump in for the last few minutes. If you are still listening, we have still 100 people in here, and you want to jump online to ask any question except for how you can get Rogers Healy to be your client. I will.
Nickelback tickets. You can lure me with Nickelback tickets and we will have a conversation.
Perfect. So answered, done. And if you want to jump in, request to share your audio and video, we can take a few more people. So the last question is, Julia, you guys have seen that the pandemic, and Kara actually just gave a great example as well. And then Rogers talked about millennials home buying, which also is a result of being trapped in apartments, is my theory. Julia, you guys passed the 10 million subscriber on Match, which was a huge deal. And as this legacy brand who sometimes isn't out in the front, how else do you guys think that the pandemic and marketing and what has changed is going to change? We have a full panel on this today at 3 p.m. Central, so you can join us on that. But what do you guys see kind of in your experience with the pandemic and with your marketing?
I think in general, for many tech companies, this has happened, and maybe for other categories as well, but definitely the role of our brand in their everyday lives of people has changed. If you think about, people who are single, before the pandemic, they could go out and go to a bar and meet people. And whether or not they decided to be online and meeting people on a dating app was really a choice. For many months now, if you were single, the only way to meet someone outside of your circle of the people that you already knew was really going on a dating app. Whether you're 60, whether you're 20, you're 30, if you're home, you're really talking to your parents, to your siblings, your friends, but you really are very limited in how you can meet people. So for us in particular, that was a big shift in terms of the value that our product can bring. I think in general, marketers have to rethink, or business owners or whatnot, you have to rethink what is the value that your product brings to this new reality and this new life. I'm sure it's the same for Rogers. I'm sure it's the same for Amazon. Clearly, it was the same for Amazon as a general product. For us, it's been like that. We've seen tremendous growth, people spending more time on the apps, people exchanging more messages, people also matching more across all of our apps, really. So it's been a big shift. What has helped us is we're also a very scrappy organization. We're a very agile, very quick organization. We're able to react really quickly, reformat, reshape our marketing message in terms of what we're offering you. We're not encouraging people to meet in person, but meeting people or connecting with people isn't over. So the value that our apps can bring in taking you, outside of your house, even if it's virtually, it's great. So the way we rethought about it or rethink about it all the time is, in this new reality, what other tools can we bring to our main promise? The overall Match promise, as you know, Kendall, because you work for the Match brand too, is sparking meaningful connections for everybody. And that meant adding video, dates. That meant adding vibe check to Match, adding other ways, Tinder that offer free passports so that people could connect with people, in other places without the need for traveling. So for us is what other features, what other functions can we add to our apps to support our main promise? Again, staying with your core and what your expertise is, but how do you adjust to this new reality? So, from an organizational perspective, definitely what Kara said before, remaining very nimble, very agile, very scrappy, able to adapt planning under uncertainty and an unstable environment can be very, very tough. And so understanding that things can change and having I'm not gonna say a plan B and C, because in this case we would all have to have like plan B, C, A, like all the letters out there. But I think understanding that even before the pandemic, we had to kind of become very agile marketers. The old traditional, old school where campaigns took a year to develop, that's gone, that's long gone. So the pandemic just accelerated that. So I think we're gonna continue to see an acceleration of offerings in terms of virtual experiences, e-commerce, digitalization, just a continued acceleration. This just like accelerated what was already happening at a much faster pace. And from a marketing and brand standpoint, it's really rethinking what is the value that your brand is going to bring to this new reality. What is the value that your product is going to bring to the new reality?
Yeah. Kim?
It also just became incredibly crowded and very noisy. I mean, there with literally everyone being on any number of social media apps. I mean, probably the company that has the most to thank for that's a horrible way to say it, but like TikTok. Think about how many users are now on TikTok, especially in the US after being home. And so because there's so much more activity from consumers and enterprise customers even being at home, that there's more noise, that brands have been working harder to try to communicate with their audiences. So a couple things that we've had to do on our side is, if it's a video, we try to shorten it to 2 minutes or under. If a gift's got to be super tight. And we just try to think about what are the optimal times to post, because now it's expanded. We really weren't doing a lot consistently 7 days a week, but now we've had to have more activity in the morning before 8 a.m. and even at night and on weekends, because there's lots more activity that was happening because everybody has been stuck at home. And that's kind of been our biggest learning, is to not only be nimble, but realize that there's so much more noise now. So how do we break through, and how do we still reach people that now everyone is trying to reach?
Yeah. Kara?
On that, actually, this morning we actually just launched a brand new feature with the where you can actually watch live streams in the app itself. And this was really escalated by the fact that there was a large demand for live streams, both serialized content as well as live performances and Q&As. So that's something that we're super heavily leaning into now and learning so much along the way. Going back to what we were talking about earlier about who cares about what and where. But we're definitely excited to, really see where this goes and continue to explore it.
Awesome. Rogers?
Can you maybe repeat the question to me? Because I want to make sure I'm answering it appropriately.
I can. How has the pandemic shifted the future of marketing your business?
We're having it up on social media even more. The prediction that we had at the beginning of the pandemic has come true. March and April were terrible, right? And my thought was, at the beginning of this thing, you're going to be on your phone more than you ever have been before, right? And I think the most depressing 20 seconds of the week is when you get your screen time update from your iPhone. And every week I'm like, how am I on my phone longer than I'm awake? Literally, it's like I'm setting records and somebody's living inside my phone. But yeah, and I think it's like anything. And I learned early on, I was part of the dating app generation. And I would be the guy that would approach somebody. If somebody's on their phone doing this, they're either on a dating app or on a real estate app. And so for us, it was going and taking it seriously. They're either swiping on a person or on a property. And so our logic was, if people run out of people on a dating app, or TMZ has no breaking news, ESPN has no sports, well, let's look at real estate. And so we leveraged that pretty well, and end up having the 2 best months in the company history in June and July, right? And the country's done well with real estate performance anyway, but we think it's going to be that much more crucial moving forward. Even when life is back to whatever normal is supposed to be, people are more reliant now on their phone than they ever have been. And, you know, it's a diagnosed disorder that I suffer from. I can't go anywhere without it. So leverage it. So yeah, we've just tried to add things differently. And, you know, the one thing we have not done a good job of is like Kara was saying, putting text and video. I wish we would have done that. And I've seen people try to do it, but you know, there's always something we can be learning from. And then the other thing too is we've heavied up on YouTube, and kind of Blair Witch style Blair Witch style approaching for us has worked out really well. To where part of video editing is you got to pay for it, and you got to wait for it. But if I'm over here just being real raw with it, I think people appreciate that. And a lot of our job is kind of reality TV, where people think that we are these crazy superheroes. It's like I open a door and I point out the carpet, and then I close the door, right? That's what we do. But trying to add an element of fun to it has, especially during the pandemic, people just feel connected. And so social media continues to help, and it always will.
Awesome. All right. I am going to allow our first guest in. We've got about 5 minutes left. Oh, 3 minutes left. So I will let her in quick, and then we will wrap it up. Let's see. Janet, are you there? Maybe not. Maybe she already bounced.
Damn it, Janet.
Yeah, Janet is gone. Ghosted by Janet, Morgan says. Last call, last chance for anyone that wants to jump in. Otherwise, we will end on time, which I am thrilled about because I never end anything on time. And this has been so awesome. The feedback in the chat session has been so awesome. You guys are just incredible, and I really appreciate you all taking time today. I know you're all busy, and as Kara mentioned, she has been up since 5:45 for a brand new product launch that Amazon Music did today. So I hope you get a nap this afternoon or this evening. Guys, you can follow all of them on social media. Follow their companies. If you need a house in Dallas, go find Rogers. And the marketing track this week, this is a kickoff of what is to come. It is just slam packed with awesome intel that will give you tools to market your business and really grow your business. And then in a few years or 20 years, you can be leading these panels like these rock stars. So thank you, friends, for joining. Thank you, everyone in the chat. There's about a 15-minute break before the agency panel starts, and we will see you all soon.
Thank you.
Oh, and go to the Women's Market. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Oh, I'm fascinated watching the numbers drop.
Don't leave.
Yeah, everyone. Okay, bye, guys.